We begin the news of this hour with Emir of Kano, Muhammadu Sanusi II, criticizing the economic policies of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's administration, saying the government is not managing the economy effectively. Speaking at the 21st Memorial Lecture of Chief Gani Fawemi, organized by the Nigerian Bar Association, Ikeja branch in Lagos on Wednesday, the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria also claimed the administration lacks credible individuals to clearly articulate its policies to Nigerians. Sanusi noted that while he had provided economic advice to previous administrations, he would refrain from doing so for Tinubu's government, asserting that the administration had not shown goodwill towards him. The Tinubu-led government has faced mounting criticism over its economic reforms, including the removal of fuel subsidies and the floating of the naira. In the meantime, the Nigerian government has dismissed criticism from Emir Muhammadu Sanusi II, asserting that it does not require his approval for the information or transformation of policies introduced by President Bola Tinubu's administration. Minister of Information Mohammed Idris, in a statement, said Nigeria is at a pivotal juncture, necessitating bold and decisive measures to address enduring economic challenges. It just underscored that the administration's reforms are not intended to court popularity, but represent essential steps towards achieving long-term stability and growth. The minister expressed disappointment over what he termed the emir's subtle condemnation of globally acknowledged reforms, attributing it to a perceived shift in allegiance. He called on the traditional leader to rise above personal and partisan considerations, urging him to prioritize the overarching interests of Nigerians. Well, to discuss this, I'm joined by public affairs analyst Dotun Ojon, who joins me this morning. Thank you for being here, Dotun. Well, if you're there, I believe that you can hear me, Mr. Dotun Ojon. Okay. We look forward to establish connection with Mr. Dr. John, and we would like to discuss that particular story. But away from that, let's tell you that Vice President Kashim Shettima has led top government officials to pay respect to the men and women of the Nigeria Armed Forces who died defending the country, as well as living veterans on Wednesday. The annual Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which takes place on the 15th of January, featured the laying of wreath and other ceremonial performances to honor the fallen. But those still alive are asking the government to honor them, not just in formalities, but by improving their living conditions while they're still breathing. News Central's Amadine Uyi tells us more in this report.
Nigeria's 2025 Armed Forces Celebration and Remembrance Day. In attendance were dignitaries and members of the diplomatic corps. After the arrival of the vice president, who was representing President Bola Tinubu, the laying of wreaths for the fallen heroes commenced. Then the gun salute to honor their sacrifices. Vice President Kashim Shettima led dignitaries to the release of white pigeons, symbolizing peace and unity for the nation. Some of those who had served the nation expressed their delight at the event.
The feeling is a feeling of joy, at the same time a feeling of great loss to our members who have fallen, who have made the supreme sacrifice. So this day, it is dedicated entirely for celebration and also remembrance of all the fallen heroes, and also those of us who serve and are living in good health, and those who are serving in the field.
Very happy. Very, very happy that they honor and remember our loved one, their selflessness sacrifice to Nigeria and to their family. We are happy that they remember both the retired ones and the ones that are still serving. We say thank you to the federal government and thank you to Nigeria.
However, others urge the federal government to focus on the welfare of these past heroes.
We want the government to help us increase our military pension that will commiserate with the current realities, because we cannot cope. Our children go to school, some of us pay rent, and others.
I think educational help. Though we have this normal military scholarship, sponsorship, which for 4 children. So our mother, who is the poor president, should please plead for those who have more than 4 children, so that those one can be catered for as well.
I advocate and I call every time I have opportunity is that government should continue to improve on the general welfare of both the serving and the retired.
With the event ended, many will be hoping that the sacrifices of these past heroes will continue to act as a beacon and a guide for a united and more prosperous nation. In Abuja for News Central, I am Amadine Uyi.
Day, governors across various states in the country marked the occasion with the ceremonial wreath laying and other activities. Well, here's a report on how the event unfolded in select states across Nigeria, as compiled by our team of reporters. We'll bring you that special report in our subsequent news bulletin. We apologize for that. But let's move on to our very next story and tell you that the Minister of Defense has expressed worry over the non-provision of accommodation and other welfare benefits for serving personnel. The minister, during the defense of the ministry's budget at the House of Representatives, says that the inadequate provision of welfare for personnel can negatively impact their performance, calling for improvements in the 2025 defense budget. The Chief of Defense Staff, while also reeling out the military's achievements in the last year, says that much has been achieved in the fight against insurgency and terrorism.
I put legal services 4.6 billion in 2024. We won't get 2025. We don't want to see that, because now, just looking at 2025 already, you have legal services 3 billion. Without any breakdown of these legal services, we as a parliament appropriate money to you, and we don't expect you to now be the one to appropriate money after we have appropriated money. This, which is what you're saying you do. You basically now decide that, okay, I have 4.6 billion for legal services. Now I can take out of that 4.6 billion and put it as local travel. I can take it and put it as international travel. You have taking the job of the parliament.
We have made tremendous progress in the international asset recovery, and over the period secured the return of over 110 million United States dollars from our recovery efforts with various countries. Efforts are also being made in the area of advancing legal and judicial reforms and strengthening the legal frameworks for trade and investment promotion, among other legal interventions.
Here on News Now, when we return, we'll take a look at more stories. Do stay with us. Welcome back and thanks for staying with us. Earlier on in the news, we discussed the story concerning former CBN Governor Sanusi Sanusi, who actually has said that he would not be helping the current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, whose latest policies have indeed rained hardship on Nigerians. Well, joining me now to discuss this is public affairs analyst Dotu Ojon. Thank you for being here. Let's take a look at this very interesting conversation. First off, how can the Tinubu administration improve its communication strategy to actually effectively convey its economic policies to Nigerians, especially looking at the fact that the Emir has come out to say that the policies, yes, it may seem good, but it's not being implemented effectively, and it's also not being communicated. Let's focus on that aspect of communication first.
Okay, good morning and thank you for having me. There were a lot of things to actually talk about from the communication or the lecture of the Emir. And since you're starting with communication, let me make it very clear that the question of having people to communicate properly that the Emir brought up is not actually a question of whether we don't have people of integrity in the government. It's about the fact that believability has always been a question between the government and the governed in Nigeria. And when you come with a communication mindset of what I call imperialistic communication model, that communication model, I developed it, is just about saying this is what I want to do, and there's nothing anybody can do about that. And that seems to be the style of the president even before he came to power, because he said, you remember I talked about, I'm going to remove subsidy when we get there, and if you like, go to the street protest. There's nothing we will do about that. We are going to remove it. That's a bit an emperor kind of statement, and that can only happen because it actually works in another area. That kind of communication model also works in other area where you have a fine line that is connecting leadership to followership, not in our own case where you have a gap bridge that is dividing leadership and followership, and that is believability. So when I expect that, because when you open the dictionary, you see that language is very, very important. It's a code of communication. That is to tell you that each community has different code of communication. In our own place, leadership must understand the communication code for the Nigerian people. And this is to say that you cannot appear to be living in opulence, for example, and expect the people to actually be, and expect the people to continue to live in abject poverty. So these are some of the things that I think the government needs to work on at the moment.
All right, let's look at the response that was indeed given to the Emir. How effective do you think the federal government's response was to him? Talking about the fact that he is not needed, nor his contributions are not either welcomed. And then they also mentioned the need for him to be more constructive rather than become a bit partisan in this aspect. What's your take on that?
Okay, I think from the conversation, we actually talked about, we are going to, I have seen them as a friend. They are my friend, but they haven't seen me as a friend. I think that's coming out from the place of, I have offered advice in time past, and maybe under the curtain or behind the curtain, and the government did not do anything. That's just my interpretation of it. So it can get to a point where you can genuinely be concerned for your country, and you just want to speak, you just want to tell the people that, this is how to do things better. And mind you, it's not even talking about the policy. He's particularly heavy on how the policy is being communicated across to the people. So all of these things that we are saying, remove fuel subsidy, liberalization of the Naira, maybe there will have been a better engagement that will have happened. And that better engagement, in my opinion, will have led to having an understanding that, see, you can't do these two major things at the same time. Everybody, perhaps maybe 90% of those people who ran for office at that point in time in 2023, had said that when they become president, they were going to remove fuel subsidy. So maybe when we have an agreement of removal of subsidy, further conversation will have led to the fact that, we cannot remove fuel subsidy and liberalize the market at the same time. This is the place of communication, and I think it's really very lacking. See, when you understand your community very well, you will know that some steps that are taken in other places, when you take it here, it may not work. For example, you import a vehicle of 30 million naira to Nigeria, for example, and your local mechanic is advising you that, you need to remove this thermostat. That if you don't remove the thermostat that you have brought it to Nigeria, means that it's not going to work well. That is understanding the local content and the local reality. And if you cannot understand the local reality, if you do not continue to engage with the people. So beyond the question of, they've done this right, they've done this wrong, it's also the place of constant engagement, which I know, which is what the Emir may be talking about. He said that they are friends, but they have not. In fact, we cannot continue to lay emphasis on the role that President Tinubu played himself before the Emir became the Emir in the first tenure, if you allow me to use that political language, before he came back. It shows that they are friends. But I cannot continue to engage my friend and telling them that, this is the right thing to do. and they go left. It could get to a point where I get tired of the whole thing, which is what I see playing out. And I've said it before, Nigeria will only move forward when, or Africa as a whole, when we stop seeing opposition as enmity. That somebody has come out to give you advice does not mean that the person hates your government. We have been on this for a while and we've continued to engage the government. So don't take him as an enemy. Please see sense from what he has. In fact, that's what any sensible man will do. Oh, you have criticized me in this area. Let me see how I can improve. As we speak now, it seems that it is only the government that understands 100% the outcome of their economic policy. And you cannot continue to drive the people who do not have a knowledge of what you are doing for them. You are going to kill them at the end of the day if you do not share the knowledge of where you are taking them to. And I think that's very important.
Well, very, very important. The Emir also had a lot to say, like you rightly mentioned in that speech. But let me bring you into this other aspect of the conversation. Still looking at the president's policies, especially this current administration. There seems to be the need for giving out cash to poor Nigerians in terms of ensuring that it could help in social services, if you put it that way, an aspect of ensuring that Nigerians can be able, the poor of the poorest, would be able to sustain themselves. What do you say about this aspect of ensuring that Nigerians can sustain themselves and the federal government using different methods to dole out cash to the poor Nigerians?
Okay, so the psychology of poverty really had made it very clear that you cannot actually take anybody out of poverty without their consent. What that means is that I do not also want a situation where the country continues to build irresponsible people. I have seen it firsthand in the Niger Delta area when this issue of giving money to the people in form of empowerment. See, there was a governor in my state, Ondo. His name is Olusegun Mimiko. He was governor at a point in time because he believed that doling out money is part of welfareism. Of course, it's a mindset. So, and I know a guy very close to us. He went to all the poly units and started giving out money. At the time I'm talking about, I'm not sure I've ever done anything that fetched me 100,000. But he gave as high as 250,000 to people. But in a matter of weeks, they've returned to their poverty. Why? Because there was absence of inspirational leadership that could take them to a place where they will hate poverty and they will be willing to work out. So that has consistently shown in Nigeria that doling out money to people has not helped them in any way. You can see it election to election. Oh, the Bokin Sebe, or that means that once I vote, I'm going to cook a pot of soup. And they keep giving out money to people to even cast ballots. And at the end of the day, the people jejely, if you allow me to use the word, return to their poverty. So every economic, it doesn't make economic sense to me because I experienced it firsthand in the Niger Delta. I could turn right and turn left and mention 2 or 3 of my brothers who have been beneficiary of government handout, who have returned to their poverty. So instead of doing that, I think we should be deliberate in our leadership style. And because even when you talk about the poorest of the poor, in my own community, it's an Nigerian community in Ondo State where a lot of people live in abject poverty. I can count the number of people who have account number. So when government comes out to say, oh, we are actually sending money to people, in my head, I'm like, oh, does Mama Kemi have an account number? The answer is no, because these are the people that you know firsthand that are poor people, and you have made an attempt to give them money in time past that they run to POS operators to say, oh, I'm going to send the account number of a POS operator. So there's been a huge disconnect between the reality or the realism of the government wanting to send money always to people and the reality that these poorest of the poor that I do know do not even have access to banks.
All right, Mr. Dr. John.
The sector in Nigeria today has not captured up to 60% of the Nigerian population.
All right,
so
Mr. Dr. John.
About giving money to people and the deliberate investment that is needed to bring them out of poverty. There's always this gap between them.
I'm afraid we've run out of time, but thank you so much for highlighting and also sharing your thoughts on these aspects, especially looking at the fact that social intervention programs and the cost of inflation is indeed impacting very, very hard on Nigerians. Thanks for your time, Mr. Dr. John. Thanks for joining us this morning on News Now. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Well, let's move on now and tell you that Nigeria's inflation rate rose to 34.80% in December 2024, reflecting a slight increase from 34.60% recorded in November. Now, according to the National Bureau of Statistics report released on Wednesday, this indicates an increase for 4 months in a row. The Consumer Price Index report shows a marginal rise of 0.20%, and that's due to a rise in demand for goods and services during the festive season. On an annual basis, the December inflation rate saw a significant increase of 5.87% points compared to 28.92% in December 2023. This highlights a continued rise in consumer prices driven by economic challenges such as currency depreciation, high energy costs, and persistent supply chain disruptions. News Central was on the street of Lagos to know what the people feel about the figure. To discuss this, I'm being joined by Mukhtar Mohammed, CEO Finance with Mukhtar. Good morning, Mr. Mohammed. It seems like every single month we're starting to see a rise in Nigeria's inflation rate. And does it get you wondering when the rise would actually turn to a point of depreciation, possibly going down rather than going up? What's your take on it?
It get me wondering why when we see, because I can see that the policies of the government is not geared towards addressing inflation as it stands now. If you look at all their policies, it's not going to address the inflationary pressure, because what we are seeing, that's what we keep saying, is textbooks economy. Nigerian inflation approach drives beyond textbook economy. It's what we call local economy. So you need to go into the locals to begin to know how to address this challenge. They're just treating the symptom rather than treating the real disease. And I keep saying that as long as we are playing, we're just doing makeup for the inflation, we continue to have this challenge, because Nigerian inflation as it stands now is largely driven by FX, exchange rate volatility, which is FX. So as long as that is not stable, as long as that doesn't come down, we keep playing lip service to inflation, because again, 70 to 80% of what we consume we import. Even when we don't import the machineries that are used to make it into finished good, we have to import it also. So as long as that FX challenge is there, we'll continue to have that problem. Ordinarily, you should have seen a downward trend because of the reduction in price of PMS, but that will not happen because there are other variables that are also key drivers of inflation, which have not been addressed. We'll talk about power cost is still very high. Like I said, then exchange rate is still high. And also, we still have multiple taxation for businesses. Not just we're not talking about multiple, we're talking about levies. And so all this, and the insecurity is still there, because if you look at what is driving inflation, is food. So a lot of these problems are not being addressed by government. That's why I said it will be an economic miracle of the century when we see the inflation come to 15%, like what is proposed by the government to happen in 2025. But I know that they are trying to rebase the economy. Maybe that's their heuristic of saying that, by the rebasing, we'll see inflation come down. But like I said, that will be an artificial measure, but that will not really address the co-inflationary pressure. Even at 34 that we are at today, some people will still tell you that it is artificial. That's not the real value of inflation, because it is more than that.
I mean, a lot of persons have said that as well. But I'd like us to quickly look at the current inflation vis-a-vis the minimum wage. What does this mean for Nigerians, especially Nigerians who earn as low as that amount, and those who even earn between 70 to 100,000 naira, looking at this inflation rate, which keeps skyrocketing?
Well, if you look at maybe salary stroke inflation, you will see that I think salary before was about minimum wage about 30,000 naira, and was moved to about 70,000. So you will see that it has been moved by almost 100%, and inflation has only grown by 34%. Ordinarily, that should be it, and you will say, okay, you've been able to address inflation. That's why I see in developed countries like the United Kingdom, when inflation was about 5%, the workers were saying, look, you have to increase our salary by 6% or 7% to be able to beat inflation. But like I said, our own inflation, it doesn't seem to correlate with what you see in the market. So what it means to your question is that the cost of living has gone up for the average Nigerian. his 70,000 naira cannot even take him any further, because again, exchange rate comes to play. At the time that you are looking at a minimum wage of 30,000, exchange rate was about 360. Yeah, I'm looking at the minimum wage at 70,000. Exchange rate is about 1,500. So you can't say you've seen an improvement. In terms of the numbers, there seems to be an improvement. But in terms of the economic reality, in terms of cost of living, that means that your economy has depreciated a little. So definitely what it means is that cost of goods are going high. So we'll begin to see the average Nigerian begin to suffer in those areas. They won't be able to meet basic things. Because when you look at the inflationary pressure that comes in now, the government is largely driven by the festivity period of alcohols and food. Then there was electricity, and there was also cost of transportation. So, but again, like I said, we are just saying that, but the real cause of inflation pressure still remains the exchange rate. As long as that is not addressed, we'll continue to just see this rate goes up until we address it.
Well, finally, I'd like to ask, what implications does this have on the central bank's monetary policy decisions? We've seen different decisions being made here and there, or even moving from one place to the other. The CBN governor has come out once in a while to talk about changes here and there. What does this actually have? What impact would it have on the Central Bank of Nigeria's monetary policy?
Well, I feel for the central bank because, again, they are monetary. They will do their monetary side. The physical side should also do theirs. If the monetary side is the only one working and the physical side is not doing anything, definitely you won't see the result, because the CBN cannot be the one to guarantee security for farmers to go to farm. So that is the point. So it's not in their place. But when you look, what the implication it means is that we might see a rate hike. And when you see a rate hike again, that means cost of business has gone up, cost of funding has gone up. But like I keep saying, rate hike is not the challenge to address Nigeria inflationary pressure. Nigeria inflationary pressure is not largely driven by so much demand and supply. It's driven by microeconomic issues that need to be dealt with. And I've said that the CBN, their last government issue, realized that they need to bring exchange rate down to be able to deal with inflation. And we thought it will go down because, again, from the data, we're made to understand that the petroleum marketers were the one demanding FX up to 40%. And so when that comes down, we'll definitely see exchange rate stabilize. We'll see cost of importation of goods comes down, and then we'll see inflation come down. But that is not happening. Remember, like I said, the physical side has to do something. Remember the policy of where the physical side came up with a policy whereby there will not be tariff on agricultural products coming into the country. That has not seen the light of day. It was supposed to run for 6 months. It didn't even run. The monitoring side also need to deal with availability of FX in the retail sector. That also has not really happened. Even in December, you saw that, January, the CBN said they were going to give the bureau they changed $20,000 from 19 to 30. And when you look at our reserve are depreciated by 360 million as at yesterday when the CBN has given the data. So what it means is that we are going down in terms of our reserve. We are not able to boost liquidity. So the challenge is, if this monetary policy does ease and the physical side does not complement, we'll continue to deal with this inflation. And if the monetary policy keep hiking rate, you will kill the most vibrant sector of the Nigerian economy, which is the informal sector, because they will not be able to borrow. So the cost of goods will go up, and then there will be unemployment because they will need to downsize. So what we need to do, we need to look at how to critically intervene. Either in terms of intervention, I'm not talking about intervention by throwing in money to the system. Intervention in terms of policy. Number one, we need to go back to that policy to make sure that a tariff are released for household, especially food items. Then secondly, the CBN also must begin to look at how do we boost the informal sector in terms of getting liquidity to the retail sector of the FX market to drive down exchange rate, and that will bring down inflation. They know, because in the last monetary committee meeting, the CBN said they have understood what the challenge is. The challenge is in the FX side, and they were excited that the reserve was about 40 billion, but that has not been able to bring stability to that market. So a lot of work cut out for the CBN. Hopefully, We are just in a new month. We'll begin to see some changes before the monetary policy meets. But if I'm sitting at what I'm seeing now, and what they've been doing all over again, I would say you see another rate hike, and the excuse will be there's too much liquidity in the economy. And when there's too much liquidity in the economy, if you reduce liquidity in the economy, you are killing one of Nigeria's most vibrant sector, which is the informal sector. So they have their work cut out.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mukhtar, for speaking with us. Thank you for your analysis as always. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, the Central's Managing Director, Kayode Akintemi, and his team have met with the Kano State Commissioner for Information as part of preparations for the upcoming town hall series organized by the station. The town hall aims to address lingering concerns surrounding the Pfizer drug trials and the plight of its victims. Our correspondent Bernard Akede has more details.
The new central team is in Kano, gearing up for the latest edition of its town hall series. This edition will focus on the unsolved issues surrounding the victims of the Pfizer drug trials and their claims of incomplete compensation decades after the incident. As part of preparations, the managing director and editor-in-chief of News Central, Kayode Akintemi, led the team to the office of the Kano State's Commissioner for Information to brief him on the goals of the town hall.
Our primary focus is for us to do community journalism, to do a lot of developmental journalism, and to do a lot of investigative work as well, because these are the areas that we find that the fourth estate of the realm in Nigeria is not doing enough. It's not a case of it's not happening at all, but it's not doing enough. And these are the things that will help the nation to grow.
The commissioner expressed his admiration for News Central's dedication to developmental journalism and commended the initiative.
Developmental journalism are things that will require you undertake an investigation, go to a rural community, find out the problem, what they are really facing, and try to bring it to the fore of the leaders. That can really help in drawing the attention of the leaders, and probably they may really like to act in that respect. So you are saving the lives of humanity, which you do not really know how many. At the same time, also even the heaven will be very much happy by you. Yes, you will welcome even in heaven, not only materially. And if you're doing that just only for humanity's sake, at the same time also, there's also going to be material again at the same time.
The commissioner also pledged his support and confirmed his intention to attend the event.
These are very good initiatives like the one you're doing, and I'm happy you are here in Kano, and I wish I were informed earlier, then I would have been your host. But nevertheless, now I pledge that I will be in the program, except if there is council meeting.
We'll tell the governor not to do council.
This is the only condition that will stop me from coming.
The town hall will be broadcast live on News Central Television at 11 a.m. on Thursday, January 16th. In Kano for News Central, I'm Bernard Akede.
Well, let's tell you that the stage is set for this edition of News Central's Town Hall series taking place in Kano State. This town hall aims to address lingering concerns surrounding the Pfizer drug trials of 1996 and the plight of its victims. Well, News Central's Bernard Akede joins me now live all the way from Kano State. Good morning, Bernard, and can you quickly tell us how Kano is this morning?
Yeah, we woke up this morning to about 12 degrees Celsius, and yeah, Hamatan is still around. But, you know, live at the venue here, we have the attendees who were very, very early and very prompt, different from all the other town hall series that we've had. Before 8 a.m., they already had started arriving, which is quite impressive. So I'm expecting that, you know, Kano is ready for us this morning.
All right, so can you quickly tell us what the mood is like? First of all, let's start off with the persons who have arrived early. Have you had a conversation with them? Who are they? And what are they expecting the town hall series to bring to the fore?
All right, Joe, I'd like you to first of all take a look at some of the people around me, and I'll describe what I'm seeing, and then I'll call somebody who would briefly speak on what we probably will be expecting. What you're looking at now, you can see some gentlemen there conversing in sign language. I mean to understand that these people are from the community of the disabled. Some of them affected by that Pfizer drug trials back in 1996, or the effect of the drug trials. Maybe not all of them, but some of them. You can also see around, you can see persons in, hand-powered wheelchairs. We've been able to see people who have been carried or stretchered in. We've seen people who have been brought in, brought in with public transportation system, different kinds of public transportation system. We've spoken to some of them and they've told us what their expectations are. I'll see if I can call. I spoke to one gentleman whose daughter, I believe, was affected by the Pfizer drug trial. Let me see if I can still get him. Alaji, Malam. All right. So he's coming. He's coming close to me. There's a number of them who had wanted to speak already, but I just told them to hold it until eventually we have, we eventually get to start the program. I'll start. Good morning, Malam. Good morning. Please tell us your name.
My name is Umar Ibrahim Nasali.
Okay, you were speaking to me earlier. You told me that your brother, your sister, I beg your pardon, was affected by these drug trials. Very quickly, can you tell me what exactly happened to your sister and how she is now?
So my sister, she lost his eyes and nose. That's what is the problem. But we are going to hospital time to time to check her body and fine.
And how is she now?
She's fine.
All right, thank you. Now I have another, Malam, please come forward. I have another gentleman here who spoke deeply about his. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. Please, can you tell us your name?
My name is Lawan Haruna.
Can you tell us how you were affected?
I was affected by my daughter was sick. So we carry her to General Hospital. They refer us to IDH, Infectious Diseases Hospital. They say she's having supraspinal meningitis. I think I understand. So, unfortunate enough, some people come from Pfizer company. They give us Batron injection. They injected her. She was become unconscious when they give her the injection.
Okay, and how is she now? What's her condition now?
She died.
She died. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Thank you very much, sir. Well, Joe, I think that pretty much sums it. What I would say is this town hall session that we're about to have today is not for the weak-hearted. It's a town hall session where I'm expecting that we're going to see a lot of emotion. I'm expecting that we're going to see a lot of people pouring out their hearts and hoping that whatever compensations they were supposed to get, hopefully somehow they will get that. There is no price for a human life, but people are hoping that at least they'll get something. Just before I end this, there was a gentleman who I spoke to who told me that he did get compensation. I asked him how much. He said as at then what he got was $7,000. That may sound big, but I asked him what was he supposed to get, and he said it was $175,000. Joe.
Well, this town hall series, particularly today's, would indeed arouse a lot of emotions. Bernard, having spoken to some of the persons you spoke with, but we cannot wait to join you and the rest of the team there in Kano State and see what will become of this emotional town hall series in Kano State. Thank you so much for joining us here on News Now. We will circle back to you at exactly some minutes before 11 so we can get on the road and get it started. Thanks for your time, Bernard. Welcome back. The United Nations has expressed concerns over reports of retaliatory attacks on civilians in Sudan's Al Jazeera state, warning that such actions may constitute violations of international law. The Sudanese army, which has been locked in a violent conflict with the Rapid Support Forces since April 2023, recently launched an offensive in Al Jazeera, reclaiming the state capital Wad Madani from RSF control. However, human rights organizations have accused the militias allied to the army of perpetrating ethnic-based attacks on minority communities in the region. At least 13 people, including 2 children, were reportedly killed in these assaults. Local advocacy groups claim that members of the Kanabi community, predominantly seasonal agricultural workers, resided in informal settlements were targeted over allegations of collaborating with the RSF during its year-long occupation of the state. In a summer farewell address from the Oval Office, President Joe Biden expressed concern over the rise of an ultra-wealthy oligarchy in America that he believes poses a significant threat to democracy. As he prepares to return the White House to Donald Trump, Biden called on Americans to safeguard the nation's institutions against powerful forces seeking to undermine its core values. In a heartfelt speech, Biden highlighted the dangers of an emerging oligarchy driven by extreme wealth and influence, warning that it jeopardizes democracy, fundamental rights, and fairness.
An oligarchy is taking shape in America of extreme wealth, power, and influence that literally threatens our entire democracy, our basic rights and freedoms, and a fair shot for everyone to get ahead. Americans are being buried under an avalanche of misinformation and disinformation. My fellow Americans, I'm speaking to you tonight from the open. The powerful forces want to wield their unchecked influence to eliminate the steps we've taken to tackle the climate crisis, to serve their own interest for power and profit. We must not be
Let's go to the world of sports, where Nigeria's Super Eagles B have been drawn in Group D alongside Senegal, Congo, and Sudan for the 2025 African Nations Championship, which will take place in Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda this August. The draw for the final tournament of the 8th African Nations Championship held in Nairobi, Kenya on Wednesday the draw held in Nairobi on Wednesday sees Nigeria facing tough competition as they aim for their first ever title in the tournament. The 2025 CHAN will feature 19 teams with 17 already confirmed. 2 final spots remain to be decided through a special qualifying round, the date of which is yet to be announced. Teams vying for these spots include Sierra Leone, Comoros, South Africa, Egypt, and Algeria, which withdrew from the qualifiers due to scheduling issues. Defending champions Edo Queens began their campaign in the 2024-2025 Nigeria Women's Football League (NWFL) with a big result against Abia Angels. In the game decided at the Samuel Ogbemudia Stadium, Benin, Edo Queens got off to a flying start, scoring 5 unreplied goals past their opponents. Robo Queens gave the baptism of fire to debutants Benue Queens with a 5-1 demolition away from home. In Port Harcourt, 7-time champions Rivers Angels secured the bragging rights over Ibom Angels, winning 2-1. Remo Stars ladies defeated Confluence Queens 3-1 away in Ayimba, while Ekiti Queens beat Heartland Queens by a lone goal. Let's tell you that Italy's federal prosecutor's office has imposed a fine on Brescia due to racist chants directed at former Remo Stars prodigy Ebenezer Akinsamiro, who is on loan from Inter Milan to Sampdoria in Serie B, was targeted during a recent match. The Serie B sports judge penalized Brescia with a substantial fine, but chose not to close any sections of the stadium. A statement published on the Liga B website noted fine of €12,000, about 19 million plus, to Brescia for having its supporters engage in such discriminatory chants towards a player of the opposing team, which forced the referee to suspend the match for about a minute in the 22nd minute of the first half. And that's all the stories we have for you for this hour here on News Now. Well, let's quickly bring to you a recap of the stories, just in case you missed out. Emir of Kano, Sanusi II, has criticized Tinubu administration's economic policies. Retired generals have expressed worry over resurgence of terrorist attacks in Nigeria. And United Nations has raised alarm over retaliatory attacks in Sudan's Al Jazeera state. Well, you can watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, Star Times 274. Don't forget to stream live on YouTube as well as on Facebook and other streaming platforms. I'm Joe Hansen. Thank you for watching. Do stay with us. More programs coming your way here on News Central.